Hello and welcome to this PIR live event webinar. I will be your host today and my name is Stacey Joyce. If you're joining us live, remember that you can ask questions anytime by clicking chat near the top left-hand corner of your Zoom window and make sure to select all panelists and attendees in the to fields so that everyone in the audience can see what questions are being asked in other provinces today. Please include your name, school, or city, and we will be sure to give you a shout out when your question is asked. And I think we're about ready to begin. So it's my pleasure to introduce the team from Ryerson University's NExT Lab and Nutrition Discovery Labs. We have today with us Neil Brett, a postdoctorate fellow, as well as Jennifer Lee, Terrence Boateng, Michaela Kukab, Layla Hammond, and Chloe Gao, and they are all undergraduate researchers. So thank you so much for joining us. I will let you take it away.
Hi guys, so I'm Michaela.
I'm Layla.
And we're going to be doing the Fit3D demonstration for you today. And where we're going to start is off just with a simple measuring tape here. I'm sure everyone's seen one of these. And what I'm going to do is measure Layla's waist circumference. And that's just simply the length around here. So let me show you. Okay, so Layla's waist circumference is 70 centimeters as measured by me. What the Fit3D does is it actually gives us, through the use of a camera, her circumference measurements without the use of a technician. So I don't have to do anything. So what we're going to do is she's going to jump on there. We're going to show you the demonstration and I'll explain as we go through. So Layla's hopped on. She's put her feet where they're supposed to be in those placements. And she's going to pull up the handles. And she's going to press the buttons down in front of her. It's really simple. And she's going to hold it down the entire time. So as you can see, she's starting to spin and just rotate on the platform. And the camera in front of her is just going up and down her body to take the same measurement that I just took with the measuring tape. In this system, we've actually put in Layla's height and weight, similar to how you would get it at a doctor's office. And then that goes into the system and it's part of her profile. Her profile then gets sent to her through an email. And she's almost done. She's just going to do one full rotation. That's all it takes. It's very quick and simple. And all done. So Layla's going to hop off and we're going to pull up a picture of Layla's results that we had previously. Once that photo's up, I can explain a little bit to you guys.
Okay, so I'm going to share that photo from here for you then.
Perfect.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, so there you can see the Fit3D actually spits out an avatar of Layla. So that's Layla right there. You can actually see a video as well, but we've just showed the pictures. And then on the side, you can see that even here, her waist measurement is 70 centimeters, 70.5, I believe. So that's very similar to what we measured. So you can see just how accurate the Fit3D is, and it was much simpler and less of it's not up to me to actually have to measure it for her. So, and then across here, you can also see how many measurements the Fit3D actually gives. So it measured her thigh, it measured her forearm, her calf, and now she has all that information as well as some cool pictures to keep. So we're actually done with the Fit3D. So we're going to head up to NExT Lab, and they're going to show you the bod demonstration.
Excellent. So I have unmuted our friends upstairs, and you can take it away.
Awesome. So we're upstairs in NExT Lab, and the tool we're going to use today is a bod pod, and this actually measures someone's body composition. So what that kind of is if you imagine when you go to the doctor's office, they kind of bring you onto a scale. So I'll show you that here. Step on for 1 sec. Okay. So just like your doctor's office, you would step on the scale and you would see how much you weigh. What the bod pod does is a little different. Not only do we get a person's weight, but we can actually organize the person's weight into their fat mass and their fat-free mass. So I'll show you a quick demonstration of what that looks like now. So we'll get Neil to step into our bod pod. And we're just beginning our analysis. So why is it's significant that we measure not only the person's body weight, but their fat mass and fat-free mass, because that gives us a better indication of their health. So if you think about it, there's some elite athletes who have a whole lot of muscle, and if they were to just step on the scale, they might get a very, very high reading. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're unhealthy. So in a device like this, when we can see how much fat and how much muscle a person has, we get a much more accurate picture of their overall metabolic health status.
And just while we're waiting there, we have a question from Ms. Innocente's class. They would like to know how someone breathes in the bod pod.
That is a great question. So there is enough air within the bod pod for the person to breathe. They're not suffocating. And yeah, Neil's perfectly comfortable. He has to kind of sit still, but if he wanted to, he could give you the thumbs up.
We can still hear him too. Neil, do you want to say hello?
While that's running here, I'm going to give a very brief explanation of how it works. We're actually measuring Neil's density by measuring his volume. So some of the old school technology some of you might have seen is a hydrodensiometry weighing, and essentially what it does is it measures how much water in the older models a system displaces. So if you have a cup full of water here and you place an object in it, you can see that a certain amount of water is displaced from the system. Based on the amount of water that comes out, we know its volume. So if we have a slightly different object, you can see the same effect. Less water is displaced in this model. With the bod pod, we're looking at the amount of air Neil displaces rather than a water model. So part of the reason I'm opening and closing the door is it's actually doing 3 separate scans of Neil and taking an average to get an overall reading. In our lab specifically, we use this for a number of reasons, but we do a lot of research in kids, and it's kind of interesting to see how people's fat mass and fat-free mass essentially associates to a bunch of different readings that we do. So if we're doing certain exercise tests, or if we're doing nutrition or cognitive tests, we'll always try and get our participants in a bod pod first, just so we have that reading and to see how it affects the others. So we're almost done here, and Neil's results will be spit out on the screen. So just like that, it's all done. We're going to get Neil to hop out. All right. And let's get a close-up of the results here. So first, it gives us a reading in percentage. So that's the fat percentage, 18.6, and lean or fat-free mass, 81.4. We also get it in pounds. So Neil here has about 33.1 pounds of fat and 144.9 pounds of fat-free mass, and his total body weight is 178. So that's how the bod pod works, and that's the results the bod pod will give us. And lastly, we're going to head over to where we do some of our exercise testing. So this is our VO2 max setup. VO2 max is essentially a fancy word explaining how we measure somebody's aerobic fitness, or rather the fitness of their heart, lungs, and some of their veins. So we can see Layla here. She has an airtight mask on that's connected to a tube. And through this system, we're actually measuring the amount of oxygen she's breathing in and exhaling. With the VO2 max test, the test actually gets slightly harder and harder as she goes longer and longer. And we're seeing her body's ability at max to uptake and use oxygen. How we do that? We have this airtight mask and a tube right connected. If I go to some of the values here, just so you have a perspective, this value here is that VO2. Just to give you an anchor, some of the world record VO2 holders we see for men is around 98. That's very rare, but those are world record holders. And for females, we see it as high as 76. If we keep letting Layla run, this number will slowly climb higher and higher, and we're going to see where she gets to at max. Some other values of interest are right here. here we're looking at her heart rate. So as you can imagine, when you guys exercise at home, as your exercise gets harder, your heart rate actually goes up. So your heart starts to beat faster and faster. And the longer we let Layla run, we'll see it start to climb. So she's at 172 right now. Based on her age, we would predict that she could get actually as high as 200. So lastly, what we might use this for in the lab is, again, just as another variable we might measure. We might want to see the effect of certain products, certain foods, and how that might affect someone's VO2. We might be interested in seeing how somebody's VO2 can affect some of their cognitive measurements. We also use this to set training regimens. So if we want to see, for example, how fast Layla needs to run to reach her VO2 max, and she might train at about that value. So that's just a very brief description of some of the things in our lab. The last thing I want to point out, just so that no one's concerned, even though the mask is tight on her mouth, she can still communicate with us through a series of hand gestures and what's called the board scale. So every so often, we'll ask Layla, how are you feeling? And it runs from 6 to 20. So 6 would be very, very light, as if you were just sitting down, and 20 is as hard as you can possibly go. So let's do a quick test of that now. So Layla, how do you feel? So Layla pointed to a 10. So we know that she's still okay. As the values get higher and higher, we might start to get more concerned and start to ask her to give us a wave when she'd like to stop. Yeah, so that's it. That's a very quick tour of some of the equipment in our lab, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for that tour. That was wonderful. I kept thinking of the Fit 3D scanner as a little platform where you might put figurines. That's what it looked like to me, and one thought I had. So going to some of the better thoughts and questions from our audience today, we had a question just at the tail end of the bod pod demonstration about why you cover the person's hair.
That's a great question. So part of why we cover a person's hair is, again, the bod pod is actually measuring someone's volume, kind of like that model I showed you. So people who have lustrous hair like Neil, it'll actually throw off the reading because it'll read his hair as part of his volume. So we put on a nice tight swim cap, and that'll compress his hair down, and it won't throw off some of our readings.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you. We also have a question here from Ms. McCrae's class asking if there's a time limit for someone to be in the bod pod.
So the bod pod is a total of approximately 3 minutes. So it's 45 seconds, and then each time, like Karen showed, you open the door in between. So that's the total amount of time. If you wanted to sit in the bod pod, I guess you could, but the testing time is only 3 minutes total approximately.
Excellent, thank you. We now have a question from Philip, who is from Earl Hague Public School, asking, does your heart rate increase or decrease with age?
I guess I can answer that. So that's a great question. Your heart rate, your max heart rate actually decreases as you get older. So there's some kind of the most commonly used equation to calculate someone's max heart rate is 220 minus your age. So to put that in perspective, Layla's 20 years old. So her expected max heart rate would be around 200. Now that's just an average. Some people have much higher max heart rates. Some people have much lower max heart rates. But in general, yes, your heart rate does decrease as you get older. Your max heart rate.
Excellent. And we have a question here from our class in Priestville, Saskatchewan, asking, how did you become interested in this field of research? So maybe we can sort of go one at a time here. Let's start with someone who hasn't had a chance to talk yet. What about you, Chloe?
So I'm interested in famous testing. So we know like the benefits of exercise and how it relates to nutrition. That's what I'm studying in Ryerson.
I guess I'll go next. I'm Neil, if you forgot my name. And I got interested when I was in undergrad back a number of years ago. I was a runner, and I was interested in the exercise component, and then how you could become a better athlete through using nutrition. And then after that, I got interested in research, looking at how good nutrition can help prevent diseases like diabetes or other things. And then here we are doing research.
So I'm Michaela. I got interested specifically because I played sports my entire entire life, and I came across many professionals involved in the nutrition field, and that got me very interested in working in that in my future. I also want to work with kids, just like yourself, and a lot of work can be in helping make healthier kids. So that's what I would like to do.
Yeah, I'm Terrence. I think a lot of my interest came in exercise first. So in my undergrad, I went to the University of Waterloo and did some kinesiology. And while I was there, I started getting interested in the interactions nutrition and exercise can play, not only on athletes, but also on general health. So I did a minor in nutrition there, and that kind of led me into this lab, looking at some of the interactions in children specifically.
Hi, I'm Layla, and much like most of my colleagues, I've always been really interested in sports, and I competed in track and field, and so that kind of drove my interest in exercise, and I was interested in how nutrition can help affect performance, and through studying the science, you kind of get involved in the research through reading what other people are doing, and I wanted to become involved in that, so that's what drove my interest in research.
Hello, I don't know if you guys can see me. Hopefully you can. I'm Jen. So unlike all of these guys, I wanted to be a vet. And the reason why I got into human nutrition was because I like animal nutrition. And I said to and I'm definitely allergic to all animals. So I just kind of changed my career path and ended up here. And I said to myself, if I care about animals like health, why don't I look into human nutrition? So that's why I'm here. The reason why I'm in specifically in this research lab is I think there's just a lot of misinformation on a lot of nutrition related things, and I wanted to make sure I knew the right information. So that's why I'm here.
I always love hearing about those tales. More often than not, I hear from researchers and other experts who did not set out on a direct path to where they ended up. It seems to be a zigzag of what life throws at you. The allergy complication is a new one for me, though. I need to keep going with that one, Jen. So let's go to another question then related. The tech dudes at Lakeshore were wondering if you have lots of experience working with technology.
Yes.
Yeah.
Specific technology, I feel like, and it's growing. I think we're learning that the more years that go by, the more technology that comes into even our field of practice. But depends on the technology that you're talking about.
So I think we use in this lab, we do research with a lot of tablets, and we use applications on tablets to fill out questionnaires or to measure things with how people are thinking and the cognitive function. And then we also have, I guess, all of this equipment in this lab you see is all technology as well. So we have all the equipment in this lab and then any equipment we've worked with previously. So I think, as they said, nowadays everything we do is somehow linked to technology.
Yes, so even if you think about Bob had the demonstration what Aaron showed with the underwater weighing, it has come from underwater weighing and getting people wet and drying them for hours to using a BOPA, which takes about 3 minutes. It's all technology related. So I do want to say yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology.
Yeah.
Some sort of technology.
Okay, going back to that idea of what it's like to be a researcher and how you got here, Travis in Campbellford, Ontario wonders if all of the researchers have taken turns to be a test subject.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
That's how we learn. So we practice a lot of these skills a lot. A lot of these, I think we learn a lot in the lab. So we have to test it on each other and help each other in that way.
Yeah. So I think we've all done, or at least most of us have done bod pods, VO2 maxes. We've been on the Fit 3D, and a few other things that we didn't have time to show today. But yeah.
And then once you do it, you have an idea of what could go wrong, what could go wrong, and you have a better idea of you can explain to people better.
You know when to ask. You figure when they're going to point to that red section of the chart. You can see the signs. Let's go to a question from Earl Haig Public School in Toronto. Hope would like to know when running one of the CO2 and oxygen machines, is there a time limit? So I guess that might be the VO2 max machine she's talking about.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question?
Is there a time limit?
Oh.
There's no time limit. Generally, we want the test to last between 8 and 12 minutes so we can get the most accurate results. But we'll keep going until the person tells us either they want to stop, we get to their peak oxygen utilization, so they're using the most oxygen that they possibly can, or they show signs that they are too tired to continue. So most of the time it will be about 8 to 12 minutes.
And how do you know when they've reached that maximum point?
So on our computer, we have a graph that shows how much oxygen they are using. And so if you look at that graph, eventually it will get to a point where it's no longer increasing as the exercise is getting harder. And so that's when you know that they're using the most oxygen that they can.
Excellent, thank you. And so Isaac, also from the grades 6 and 7s in Toronto, wants to know if it's dangerous to be on that machine for too long.
I can answer that. Yeah, I would say the risks are no more than if you were ever doing any maximal exercise. So you could get fatigued, lightheaded, dizziness. But kind of the advantage we have with using a metabolic cart, which is where we were seeing all those values, is once you really understand some of the physiology behind it, you can actually see how tired somebody is, how much CO2 they're producing. And you can tell when they're starting to reach some of those maximal values. So we not only look at some of their physical signs, but we also look at the values that are being spit out. And that kind of helps us ensure safety. As well, I don't know if you saw on camera, but we always have a spotter behind the person, kind of checking their form and making sure that they're not slipping on the treadmill. And if worse comes to worse, they can catch them if they were to fall off the treadmill.
I just want to add, the equipment itself, like the metabolic part that measures your breath composition, is not in any way dangerous. You can still breathe in and out, you can still talk, so it's just really uncomfortable to have like a mask and not be able to move around very much, but there's no time limit, like you can probably sleep with it on.
Yeah.
But what Terrence is talking about with when you're exercising, that's when there are risks associated with it, not the equipment itself.
Thank you. We now have another question from our tech dudes at Lakeshore. They self-identify as tech dudes, by the way. I am not making this up. Approximately how many athletes and people have you helped over the years?
We're getting close to 500, I think. And 500 community, if you include athletes.
In 3 years.
Yeah,
500 people. Yeah, more than 500 people in 3 years.
Philip at Earl Hague wants to know if you've ever had any of those accidents. You have lots of safety procedures in place. Have you had to use them?
Not really. Again, some people do get a little bit lightheaded, and we might have to just sit them down and give them a little bit of water. But no, nothing extreme has happened. Excellent.
That's what we want to hear, right? We also have a question here from Macy at Earl Hague asking, is there a height or weight maximum for the bod pod?
I don't think there's a height. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there is a weight.
There's a weight maximum. As you can see, it's like there's limited spacing area, so because of that, there's a
yeah, it's about 550 pounds.
That would get most people in there, I think. All right, well, we now have a question from Avery in Campbellford, Ontario. Avery is wondering, where do you get new ideas and inspiration from?
Yeah, that's a tough question. Usually when you're doing a research study, through doing the research, you get your results, and then from those results, it usually will help produce other research questions, because you realize from those results what's important and what you still need to do, because there's no study that's able to look at everything. So if you're looking at a study on exercise, then there's always something else afterwards that you can do. So it's kind of, each study you learn a bit and then a bit more, and then you're always trying to progress forward.
So we've looked at a lot of things today in the lab that are all sort of quantitative things. You're taking measurements and getting numbers. Do you do any qualitative research in your lab where it's a little less concrete?
We don't do specific qualitative. It's not the central focus. Yeah.
Yeah, we do quantitative.
We use some surveys that you could say are partway in between quantitative and qualitative. So surveys that are more subjective, more based on what people are feeling or thinking. So surveys for how if they're hungry, or if they have an appetite, or things like how they're thinking, or how they're feeling their mood. So there's a number of different survey tools that we use, and they're less quantitative than all the numbers we get from the technology here, but they're partway in between qualitative and quantitative.
So we have a question now from Emily in Toronto, who would like to know what is the biggest accomplishment that you've had in the lab, or maybe recently a big accomplishment?
I can start. I would say I'm nearing the accomplishment now, but I was leading a study and still am currently finishing up that study. And that's a huge accomplishment for me to take a leadership role in that research. And then I guess it'll be a huge accomplishment, hopefully in the next month, to complete that study with and that'll be 20 children that I have participated in my research.
Let's go around. Who wants to go next?
Sure, I can go next. Mine's a little different. A lot of the work I do is with the community members and using some of our equipment to test people who are out in the community just interested in their own health outcomes. So I think for me, even though I don't necessarily do that much, but when somebody comes in and they do, say, a bod pod and they see their body fat percentage and fat-free mass, and as they come in 6 months, a year in advance and see people progress and get more and more fit and more healthy, I think it gives me a sense of accomplishment anyway, and that I can provide that service. So, yeah, that's it.
I think my biggest accomplishment is running this lab. I'm the lab manager here. I train a lot of the students here, and I help them out as much as I can on top of all the other tasks that I'm associated with. So for me, just seeing them grow is a big accomplishment.
You love Jen.
I'm relatively new here, so I think probably my biggest accomplishments are learning how to use all of the equipment you've seen here today, and some of the other equipment that you haven't seen because we didn't have enough time, and also being able to help out in the research process. So Michaela mentioned the study that she's running. Being able, knowing that I'm a part of that and contributing to science is the big accomplishment for me.
So for me, so I studied nutrition and food, so it's kind of related to health. But personally, I didn't do exercise much, but I'm really new to this lab. So once I came here, I learned how to do different kind of tests. I know all the benefits about like running just for about 10 minutes. That would be benefits to my health. So I started to running every day now.
I guess I'm last. Yeah. So I did my PhD in Montreal at McGill University. I don't know if we have any viewers in Montreal or in Quebec right now, but in Montreal I studied vitamin D research and how vitamin D can affect the bones and the muscles of growing children. And so I got to help improve the vitamin D recommendations in Canada.
Lots of accomplishments in the lab. Congratulations to all of you. I have to add the accomplishment of giving this virtual tour. I know we've done this once before. We did it again today. I know the students have, I'm sure, really enjoyed getting a glimpse of the things that you work with, the equipment, the space, and hearing from you regarding what that is all like and how you got here and where you're headed. So thank you to all of you for joining us today and answering our questions and showing us around.
Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you so much.
So now we are wrapping up. That's all the time we have today. Do join us again for another PIR live event. Next up in 2 days, we are talking about brain modeling and interdisciplinary research between computer science, engineering, and philosophy. So please do join us for that or other future live events. All the information is posted at pirweb.org. And I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye now.
Bye.